I got a new cup because my Stanley like disintegrated earlier. It just the handle broke right off. So I'm on that Yeti game now. I'm still basic, just not as basic.
Yeah. Yeah, I never got one of those. I just run through water bottles like crazy.
Yeah, dude, that is a story. That company, man, I was looking. I forget what the exact numbers were, but it was something along the lines of they increased like 600 or 700 million in revenue. What was that in 2023 or whatever when they started popping off like crazy? But it was it was like from 70 million to like 700 million in the span of like 10 years or 8 years or whatever it was. Just their marketing was just unbelievable. Just goes to show you what brand equity does, you know?
Yeti or
Stanley. Yeah. It was literally, they just hired someone that was like, we're going to come in and fix all these colors and make things look nice and pretty. And it just made their company explode. I think it was like 700 million. I'll look it up.
Yeah. That's crazy. Talk about a growth rate, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. $750 million a year business from the, yeah.
What was the growth trend? Just curious.
Yeah. So it arrived. Yeah. I got it right here. 2019, they did 73 million. 2020, they did 94 million, doubled to 194 million in 2021. 2022, they did 402 million. And then it just went up from there. I think it was, 2023 was like 650. 2024 was like 750. It's unreal.
I mean that 100 mil to 400 mil is insane.
Yeah. Yeah. And they go into it, and it's literally nothing more than just being like, we're going to market better. Same product. Same exact product.
Yeah. Do they sell direct on Amazon, or does Amazon sell their stuff?
I believe Amazon. I think it's 1P. I think Amazon sells their stuff.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah. But just to like parallel that to Amazon wholesale, right? In what we do, scale it down a lot, but
just a little bit,
Yeah. But think about it, like even if you take a sliver of that kind of market share, like we were talking one account, like one wholesale account, especially one exclusive agreement could really change the course of your business.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you get one account doing, I don't know, 100,000 gross per month. Like that's over $1 million revenue per year.
Yeah. And you talk about like you mentioned about Stanley's jump from like whatever it was, like 100 to 400 or whatever I said. Like, obviously it's not, of the same dollar figure, but like that same concept can happen with brand direct and with wholesale in general, because you can add one account. Like we always kind of preach that. It sounds a little cliche, but like it only takes one. It just takes one account to literally and figuratively bump you into that next tax bracket. So
yeah,
you don't get that with arbitrage.
No, I mean, it's no joke, and the scalability element of it. Like, you don't have to build a brand from scratch. There's already a brand out there. They've done all the work. They've done all the R&D, the manufacturing, the marketing, and you are capitalizing on that existing brand equity, ideally helping it grow. But it's that scalability element of wholesale. So maybe you're not getting, 30, 40+% margins like you would be in private label. But you're still getting pretty decent margins, but you already have access to all the infrastructure that's already been built, so it's massive, and Dylan's saying here, imagine partnering with a small brand that goes on to do over 100 mil revenue. I mean, it's crazy, because while 100 mil revenue is a huge number, like things like that can happen. Like I've seen brands over the course of time like that started out small, and maybe we didn't look at them for a while, and then over the past couple of years they just exploded.
Yeah.
It's things like that can happen, so get on the train early. Really partner with these brands, and um, hey, I mean, if they're motivated to grow, that's the kind of brand you want to work with.
That's when you get to be like, I liked them before they were cool.
Yeah, exactly. So if you guys have questions, fire them away. Always happy to answer them here on Wholesale Wednesday.
Yeah. We know how to highlight the questions now. That was discovered last week. If any of you tuned in, look at that. It only took 28 episodes for us to figure out how to
half a year of lives, and we finally realized how to put the question on the screen.
Yeah, well, So
blame me because you don't even have access to do it.
I'm like second mate on the ship here. All I get to do is talk. You got control over everything.
Yeah, so we got Claudia. Good evening. How we doing? We got a question here. When doing PPC, how do you decide if you want to spend 5 cents or 50 cents?
Yeah, well, I feel like that opens a can of worms. That question, there's a lot of things to talk about with something like that. I mean, in terms of PPC bid and like the time of the year and seasonality and the nature of the product, like I feel like we could go into a lot on something like that.
Yeah. Biggest thing is, I would say generally for what we do is we'll run PPC for our exclusive brand partners. Really the only time we'll run PPC on a non-exclusive agreement is to work our way into an exclusive agreement. So maybe we run PPC in the early stages as we're building that relationship with our sites set on exclusivity with the brand. But we don't run any type of like all ASINs campaigns. I know some wholesalers do that, some arbitrage sellers do that, but we don't do any of that. I don't find it's really beneficial. You're generally spending a small dollar amount, and you have to have the buy box in order for your sponsored ads to run. So the best thing to do is partner with brands and then work out some type of agreement. A lot of times what we'll do is, we'll say to the brand, hey, here, we're going to invest $1,000 into ads, and we're going to prove the concept for you. We're going to show you how effective our ads are. And then we go back to them with the data, and they say, this is great. We want to double down on it. Or even better, they want to take it over the ad spend. They want to start spending money on the ads. So
yeah,
usually.
Yeah. I mean, getting like just taking it from a little bit more of a granular perspective, like with, the PPC spend, you said, how do I know 5 cents versus 50 cents, et cetera? There's a lot of factors that if you are running PPC campaigns determine how much you're spending. You have dynamic bids, which are, basically what you're saying is you're like a very simplified version of PPC is how much do I need to spend to, cost per click, cost per, acquisition of a sale. And depending on the time of the year and the competitors and everything else that's going on, you might have to outspend or outbid someone else, that's running ads as well. So ads can get more competitive, and you have to go by two different things. One is looking at which keywords are converting and which are actually have a low average cost of sale, and then doubling down on those, and then pausing the campaigns that are a high average cost of sale and a high total average cost of sale to then, get yourself as low of a cost of acquisition per sale as possible. And sometimes that means increasing your bid to outbid competitors, et cetera. So it's a little more granular into like ads, but that's kind of how you determine it in a nutshell. And you don't need to know all that. Like if you want to hire an ad firm, feel free to do that, especially at the beginning.
Yeah. Amazon PPC can get expensive because it's really just a bidding war at the end of the day for who can buy the most digital real estate. So you see these big brands who always maintain a dominance. I think of like a brand in the beauty industry, like huge brand Paul Mitchell, right? No matter what you search, it could be the broadest keyword out there for hair and beauty, whatever it is, they're at the top of the screen, and that's just because they have millions and millions of dollars to outbeat everybody else on the market. So, you're after the niche brands, the smaller to medium sized brands. That's a massive brand. But, that's really what it comes down to, is how much you're willing to outbid the next guy.
Mm-hmm. It says, how can you provide value as a beginner seller with no accounts yet? Actually, just had a conversation about this a couple minutes ago with someone. Why don't you go into that a little bit?
Yeah, so this is a very common question, and something that I felt, when I first started in the wholesale road. And the reason for that is because, you have an Amazon account with not really any products in your portfolio. So you don't feel as though you really have much to offer to the brand. Um, and I can tell you that, after hundreds and thousands of conversations with brands, very rarely, it happens where they, ask to see the store and whatnot, but very rarely on a mass scale would I say that the brand is like wanting to see our products, in our portfolio of products, right? It happens, no doubt. But the biggest thing in the beginning is, I would say, two things. One is to get your hands on inventory, so start carrying products. You don't have to close exclusive agreements right away, but start, buying, right? Buying from brands, buying from distributors if you can't get the brand account, authorized distributors.
Yeah.
And the next biggest thing is focus your attention on them, and focus the attention on building their brand. And if you communicate to them with the rhetoric that we talk about, on the channel, and in our content and information, where you're being the strategic partner, and you're being empathetic to their concerns, you will stand out way farther than everybody else,
Mm-hmm.
because everybody's asking for what they can take. But if you focus the attention on them and what you can give, the things in the background will become less of a concern. Like, we don't have a big facility. We don't have like these big things. We don't rarely even show our website to brands, so it's more so the relationship is the focus.
One of the biggest things that we have seen with newer sellers and people transitioning from arbitrage to wholesale, or people that have yet, I consider newer seller, like you haven't made over 100 cold calls yet, is we see this consistency of this analysis paralysis of like, I need a website and I need this and I need that and I need that. And like, it's just like Amazon wholesale is just made out, I think, to somehow be this super complicated thing. And the reality of, wholesale is that it's not complicated, right? It's actually very straightforward, and you don't need all these things to start getting accounts. They're nice to have as you grow, but I think that a lot of sellers, from what we've seen, at least in our experience, use those things as a reason to not get started, because they think they just need everything perfect, and they overplan and then they under execute.
Yeah, definitely. Just focus on the work and putting in the cold calls. I want to jump to Instagram for a second, because we got a question from Blue Academy. And it says, which software do you use to show the exact stock count as a seller is carrying?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the software that we recommend. We used to use one, but it's no longer really working with Amazon. But the software we recommend is called How Many, and it's an extension that, with the paid version, you can get through the stock limits that sellers have. So if they're limiting a purchase to like 10, let's say, Amazon will only show a purchase that their stock is available with 10. But if they're, regardless if they have that or not, the extension can see through it. So it's called How Many. It's a Chrome extension. The paid version is what we have, but even the free version is pretty good. Right. Did you ever manage to convince a brand to switch from Amazon as a seller and go with you instead? So this is kind of referring to like a seller that is the company themselves is selling, and then, transition over to us.
We have, and generally if that happens, they have some sort of pain point with Amazon.
Mhm.
So you really don't know what their pain points are until you start to ask them the calibrated questions and unpack what their situation is. So we've had brands where they just don't even want to ship to Amazon. They could care less about anything else, but shipping to Amazon is just a challenge for them because they're not set up for it. It's just, logistical headache. So that's a perfect value add, right? We're already set up to ship to Amazon. We do that on a day-to-day basis at our warehouse. So that would be an example of, perhaps a situation where we convince a brand to go exclusive with us instead of them selling direct themselves. There's other situations too, but it does happen. It's really all about the situation that the brand is in and the pain
Yeah.
points they have.
I think a lot of it with brands that are selling direct is you kind of hit it on the head there. I think a lot of it is logistical. Like that's been, the case where we've had accounts that we take over and then we wind up actually purchasing more from the brand than they were sending in themselves. And it's just because of a logistical lapse in dealing with Amazon. And so sometimes, like, obviously the brand is going to make higher margins selling themselves, but sometimes that's offset by the logistical issues that Amazon causes. And in that case, they'd rather outsource it. So if you're trying to do that, I would, as Brad said, target like the logistical pain points of the brand. I think that's the way to do it.
Yeah, it's crazy, but we've done the math on some of these brands, either prospective brands or brands that we work with. What's that?
We're like, don't tell them.
Yeah,
Like,
we've done the math
yeah,
because I have an idea of what some of these brands are paying, like for their
yeah,
cogs, they're from the manufacturer, and like we've done the math with some prospective brands that that are in the pipeline, and some of our existing partners, and I'm like, they could be making $1 million a year on Amazon. They could be making 500K a year on Amazon selling themselves, but they just don't want to mess with it. It's one of those things where they're not set up for it. They don't understand it. There's headaches for it.
yeah.
So that's that's the strategic partner that comes in and handles all those things. So
Mhm.
that is the answer of why a brand would work with you over selling themselves on Amazon.
Yeah. Actually, I was just going to target this question here on Instagram, but my guy David actually came on YouTube and asked it because he figured we would see it there. But I was just going to hit that next, David. Just says, how do you save on shipping to use FTL, Amazon Freight, or third party? So I think that, it depends on the amount that you're shipping. But, you know, I don't know, Brad, would you say that you're better off using partnered carrier up until like full trucks?
Partner carrier is in LTL or
Yeah, yeah.
UPS?
LTL.
Up until full
Yeah,
truck.
because I mean, Amazon Freight is technically a partnered carrier, right? But like, you have to organize the service like separately, right? So I just, in my mind, I kind of think of it a little separate. Like through Seller Central, everything from small parcel delivery UPS to any sort of LTL shipment. You think that, I mean, the best rates we've seen, right, are partnered carrier rates.
Yeah. So if you're shipping or if you're shipping Amazon Freight FTL, you're
Mhm.
paying a flat rate. So you have to look at what that going rate is with FTL. Let's say it's, I don't know, right around when we were running it for the holidays Q4, it was running around $600 to $700, somewhere in that range. So if you're shipping even a half truckload at that rate, and like let's say you're shipping a lot of units because you're breaking your shipping down per unit, you're taking your total shipping cost and dividing it by the amount of units you're shipping to Amazon. Plus, of course, you're sending that one truck to one location, so
Mhm.
you're automatically paying the highest minimal placement fee. So you're paying we're East Coast, so we're paying 23 cents a unit approximately, plus the marginal difference of the freight program. So let's say, you could run the math and say you're shipping it to Amazon at $700 for the carrier rate. and you're shipping, I don't know, let's say 5,000 units. So that's 14 cents a unit, plus your 23 is about 37 cents a unit. So you take that and you compare that to what you would be paying on, let's say, an LTL, right? Shipping a few pallets LTL. But generally, what we've found is that if you're shipping at least a half a truckload, and Amazon's running their rates somewhere in the range of, I don't know, $600 to $700 for the full truck. A lot of times it makes sense to go with the full truck. Like unless you're shipping like huge bulky units where you don't have that many units and it's taking up a massive amount of space in the truck. And even then it might make sense, but it's all just it's a give and take. It's a push and pull situation where you're assessing these different things. The other benefit to using Amazon's freight program is that that's one of like one or two other departments at Amazon, one of the most competent departments at Amazon. So you will be assigned I know why you're laughing because we were talking transparency is another one, but Amazon Freight, you will be assigned a representative that is like really, really competent. Like he or she will take care of you. They will walk you through the entire process from start to finish. On top of that, you can coordinate things like live unloads.
I was waiting for you to say that. Live unloads are huge, and that kind of is the follow up with what David just said, which is that his pallets have been taking 2 months to check in. So, I mean, yeah, man, I think that, I mean, doing everything you can to mitigate, those long check-in times, 2D barcodes, shipping to fulfillment centers that don't have crazy lead times. If you can find out that information, yeah, LTL is tough, especially during peak.
Yeah. I mean, LTL during peak is like almost out of the question, I would say, October, November time. But David, I don't, if you looked at all into the Amazon freight program, maybe you found this thing called, live unloads. And really all that is just to make sure we're all on the same page here. That means that when that trailer backs up to Amazon's warehouse, within 2 hours, your stuff will be checked in and your rep can confirm that that's going to happen. And if it doesn't happen, I've had reps tell me, I will personally reach out to that FC and make sure that your stuff gets checked in.
Yep.
Right. So that's the kind of level of service that you're getting with Amazon Freight. So I would just compare rates and look into all of it.
Yeah. I actually want to touch on this question here on Instagram before we jump back in. Just because IG gets the short end of the stick because for some reason it doesn't populate on our stream here. So we got to look at them individually. It says, how do you go about fixing a listing for an example, images or, the text? Do you do it yourself or have you done it through a third-party agency?
Can you repeat the question? I was reading another.
Yeah, no problem. I said, how do you go about fixing a listing, for example, images or text? Do you do it yourself or have you done it through a third-party agency?
So now we work on that stuff in-house for the most part, but in the beginning, we used Fiverr to optimize listings. Fiverr one-off jobs are great, because they could do all the A+ content you need. Images, graphics, all that sort of thing. As far as bullet points go, you can use softwares like Helium 10 to get an idea of the keywords that are going to rank best for the listings. And then you want to generally list those bullet points in feature benefit format. And making those changes with Amazon is all about having brand registry. So you want to make sure you have brand registry for the brand and try to, go back and forth with Amazon a bit to get those changes done.
Yeah. Yeah, dude, I sent you that message earlier today about like that super granular brand registry thing. I don't know if you had responded to it. Did you know about that? How you have to have like your brand registry account has to be connected to, there's like 4 components in order to ensure that you're connected to that listing. I was not aware of that last component, which is that you have to have, even if you have permissions under brand registry, you have to go in separately and give yourself permissions under the selling account under brand registry as well. It's like a separate component.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was interesting. So I'm gonna I gotta switch onto my other computer here. I'm gonna leave you alone for 2 seconds and just let me back in. All right.
All right.
All right. Give me 1 second.
Not letting you back in.
Yeah, I figured. 1 second.
So we got another question here. Let's see. Have you folks done a PPC for beginners video? If not, can I request you to make one? How to do PPC if you are just getting into an engagement with a brand, analyzing listings, deciding PPC. So the biggest thing with PPC is that we have fully outsourced PPC in the sense that we work with an agency on PPC. PPC is quite complicated, and as a brand direct wholesaler, you don't need to know all the nuances of PPC, and I would actually recommend outsourcing it. There are a lot of videos on YouTube and information that you could find on YouTube on learning PPC. So I'm not saying don't learn it, don't have you want to have an understanding of it, because you need to be able to pitch it to brands. You need to be able to at least speak on the topic and be understanding of all the different components of it. But in terms of from a granularity perspective, you don't necessarily need to know exactly how to run PPC, so long as you are working with an agency that can do that for you. So if you're completely lost on PPC, my recommendation would be to outsource it to an agency, especially if it's your first couple go arounds with the brand and you're in the exclusive agreement with the brand, or maybe a semi-exclusive agreement, and you're looking to show the brand this is what we can do, rather than shooting from the hip. I would recommend outsourcing to an agency on PPC. You back with us? Brandon, you with us? All right, well, he's working on that. We'll keep firing away at the questions here. So, Magic on Twitter. Can being invited to a brand's Amazon brand registry while your account is deactivated cause any issues? So, I'm pretty sure I understand what you're saying. So basically, if your account is deactivated, generally, if the brand is inviting you to their brand registry, there's two layers to this. So if you're working with them in your own selling account, meaning you are making the changes in your selling account to their listings, then you'll want to have that brand send the brand registry invitation to your Amazon selling account. If you're working in the brand's Amazon selling account, this is scenario number 2. If you're working in the brand's Amazon selling account, and in that case, you will actually want the brand to send you an invitation under their selling account. So that'll be a separate email that you're going to be working out of under that brand's account. So it can get a little bit complicated, but there's sort of two layers to it. All right. So let's see here. Claudia, we got another question coming in. If Amazon is selling for the brand, any way to steer them away and go with you? It's a good question. It sort of relates back to.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I could hear you.
Sorry.
You with us now?
Yep, I'm good.
All right. Yeah, so this sort of relates back to the previous question, Claudia, in that if the brand is selling themselves on Amazon. And with that, you can, again, it's the same sort of answer as the one before, right? If they're selling directly to Amazon, there could be problems with logistics that they have with sending inventory to Amazon, and Amazon's buying directly from them, and they're not complying with, what the brand's standard logistics practices are, then you could potentially convert them from working directly with Amazon to working with you. So there are definitely situations that you can do it. Is it necessarily the best use of time? It depends on what the brand's pain points are. So David, we're going back to shipping.
That was one we had answered.
Yeah. So
That's you said that computer setup there and that profile picture. That was pretty.
Yeah, I noticed that. That was cool.
Pretty serious.
So yeah, David, just to tell you how to contact a rep, all you got to do is go to AmazonFreight.com and just reach out to the support. Send a ticket, say you want to open an Amazon Freight account, and then they'll, within probably about 48 to 72 hours, they'll assign you to a rep.
Mm-hmm. Pretty sure you could get like a $50 gift card too if you give an affiliate to somebody. So tell your friends, tell your other Amazon sellers.
Yeah.
How do you get a letter of authorization from a brand? Is it an electronic document that they're supposed to email you, and then you submit to Amazon? Let's talk a little bit about letters of authorization and invoices and IP complaints and all that fun stuff. I'll jump into that.
Yeah. So the first thing is, if you're reaching out to the brand directly, you want to be transparent with them if you're selling on Amazon. You never want to lie to the brand and start a relationship on a lie. That's, one of the worst things you can do. While we don't broadcast like, hey, we're Amazon sellers, we still, end up telling them that, yes, we do sell on Amazon. So that's the first layer of it. So you shouldn't necessarily need a letter of authorization from the brand if they know that you're selling their products on Amazon. Unless Amazon's like asking you for one specifically in regard to like an account health issue, then they might need an LOA between you and the brand. And then if you have a good relationship with the brand, they should be able to provide that, no problem. If you're buying from a distributor or an authorized distributor, you just want to make sure that distributor is in fact authorized by the brand. And if they are.
And how do you do that? What's the easiest way to do that?
You ask the brand.
Yeah, exactly. So just for anyone that's wondering about that, how to go about doing that, just you can ask the brand directly. So just want to interject that.
Yep.
But I mean, I think it goes to like the most important thing out of all this is the legitimacy of the supplier, because again, you go back to being authorized by the brands and everything. You want to ensure your suppliers are legitimate, because if they're getting product from somewhere else or it's shady or whatever it is, you're going to run into some issues as well as if you're not authorized. So,
yeah. And I actually want to jump back to a question here that I was answering when you were dealing with the technical difficulties. So Magic had asked if being invited to Amazon brand registry account, if your account is deactivated, if you cause any issues. And I was explaining that there's two options you have. One is to actually send the invitation to your selling account if you are making the changes in your account. And the second option is to have them send you the invitation to a separate, like your separate brand registry account if you're making the changes in their selling account. So with his question, have you heard of an account, like let's say my account is deactivated and a brand invites me to their brand registry? Have you ever heard of any sort of related issue with that?
You're talking whether there's a relationship between seller and brand registry? selling account and brand registry. If selling account gets deactivated, brand registry also gets deactivated, type of deal.
Could so let's say I have a selling account, you're the brand. You send me an invitation to my selling account for brand registry in the same information as my selling account, right? But my selling account is deactivated. Does that pose you any risk? I think he's asking.
As the brand, you're saying?
As the holder of the brand registry account.
I doubt that it does, and I say that on the basis of I look at it like on a user permission basis, right? So if you are given, you're not, it's still not in your name. You know, if you have a brand registry account and then you send an invite to someone else and then they get deactivated, it's not tied to the same email. So I would think that it would be completely irrelevant in terms of the deactivation. That's just my initial thoughts on it. I don't know for sure on this. It's kind of a unique question, but I would not think that it would pose a risk just from my knowledge. Is that what you said as well?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, is that it wouldn't
Yeah.
pose any sort of a risk, unless generally it'll cause a risk if like the information within the account, like you said, overlaps. Uh,
Right.
so that, all that being said, if your account is deactivated, you're going to want to make that your priority to get that back before getting anybody's brand registry.
Oh, you kidding me? I wouldn't be. I'd be like, yeah, all right, I'll get back to you in a month. Let me.
I would exclusively be dealing with you
Oh
getting
yeah.
your Amazon account back. And there are really good firms out there that can help you do that. So that
Yep.
I would recommend that's the priority. 2D barcodes work.
We've seen some success. We've also seen success in optimized shipments have gotten faster check-in times, which obviously makes sense because they're distributing the inventory less. But yeah, and we've seen success with 2D barcodes as far as the shipment time check-in faster. And unfortunately, I don't know. I was complaining about this to Brad the other day. Is why Amazon doesn't allow you to print 2D barcodes off of Seller Central. I'll never understand that. But there's a ton of softwares, Boxum, Inventory Lab, things like that do allow you to print 2D barcodes that you can then send into Seller Central. So hopefully, maybe Amazon will do that soon. I don't know why they haven't done that yet, but
yeah. John's asking how to protect a brand that has a patent from knockoffs.
yeah, I think that there's a chain of command, I think, for doing something like this. And first thing is that brand registry. What that really is a way of registering your brand to be recognized by Amazon so that you can now use your trademark or whatever it is to issue intellectual property complaints if someone uses your mark or things like that. But it is a very, very consistent problem. I mean, we saw that statistic that came out, what was it, this week, that 50+% of products on Amazon are from China. And a lot of it is counterfeit, and so it's a persistent issue. But brand registry, I think, is the first line of defense for me personally.
Yeah, this issue has gotten extremely rampant over the past several years. And unfortunately, not to be cynical or anything, but with this knockoff issue, Amazon, a lot of their programs are PR driven. So brand registry, IP, all these different tools that they put out are generally PR driven. Because Amazon turns around and hosts seminars in China for exactly how to knock off products, and that's no exaggeration.
Yeah.
There are, and this is not conspiracy stuff. Like, this is real stuff that happens. Um, Amazon, like Brandon pointed out, at 50% plus of sellers on Amazon are based in China. But, Amazon really caters to the Chinese market, and it's because that's the hub of manufacturing, right? So they would be losing a lot of money if they didn't. Um, all that being said, and the other thing is, I've even heard like Chinese sellers having such a in with Amazon's network that they are uh, putting bribes, like they are bribing the employees at Amazon to sabotage certain sellers' listings. So, like, let's say I'm a U.S. seller, and there was a supplement company that I heard of, a U.S. based supplement a U.S. based brand. It was a supplement company, and they were issuing claims against the Chinese sellers, and the Chinese sellers retaliated and put information in their listings, or bribed employees at Amazon to change information in their listings to have ingredients that violated Amazon's restricted product policy. So it's kind of an extreme example. Again, I don't want to be cynical about this, but um, Amazon makes it difficult with the knockoffs.
I mean, one of the things that we can say though is that the problem's not stopping. If anything, it's being expedited by the way that Amazon themselves is treating the issue. So all that you can do as a seller, is to be able to protect your brands. And again, everything that we talk about pushes towards this idea of brand direct wholesale and just being a brand representative and taking care of your brand, and that is become very apparent after seeing all these statistics.
Yeah. And so, the final thing I'll mention about that is that um, if you have a patent on the product, you have much more clout versus a trademark. Like, if you have a patent and a patent number, Amazon will be much more favorable to you in removing the knockoffs. A patent is stronger than a trademark for removing the knockoffs. Um, but the final thing about knockoffs, and this is something that I preach all the time to brands, is that let's, instead of spending tons of money on the legal route, let's be strategic about it and spend money on advertising. Because if we could spend money on advertising, then we can dominate the digital real estate and the page positioning, so that it'll flush out the knockoffs, so that our brand will appear at the top of the page. And that's something that I pitch brands all the time.
Yeah, and I kind of laughed at that because I have seen, and I'm sure you have in some of your calls as well, is you get these brand owners that are completely removed from the offensive like that. And how many times it's happened to me quite a bit being on the phone with a brand where they are interested. Their sole thing is we're going to legally attack all of these people. And we're not going to allow any other Amazon sellers until we get rid of these counterfeits, and then we're going to focus on our brand, and it's just a complete wrong approach. And a lot of times they just don't even understand. And so you have to come in and educate. But yeah, I've seen it way too many times where they should be doing what you're saying and focusing on advertising. And instead they try to, sue everybody under the sun. And that doesn't really work.
Yeah, well, then they got to learn the hard way and spend a lot of money to end up in the
Yeah.
same position that they started. Because it becomes a
Mhm.
game of whack-a-mole, and the only brands that can fight that legal battle are the massive brands, that have unlimited money to spend on, legal.
Yeah. Yeah. I saw this, what's it called? It was like, years ago when like Nike got into some trouble, and it was like the devil is strong, but Nike's lawyers are stronger. Like
Yeah.
there's just brands like that. I mean, if you have a whole department, a legal department, like I'm, you know, probably don't want to mess with something like that. But most of these brands don't have that, especially the ones we're targeting. It's like, you know, small to mid-sized companies. So
Yeah.
what are the initial tools needed to find brands for beginners, Keepa, etc.? What is better, seller assistance or seller amp? I don't never. Have you heard of seller assistance? No, no.
No. No.
Well, I guess by that logic, seller amp is better for us. So we've never heard of the other one. But yeah, let's talk a little bit about the starting tools. You're very adamant about not needing a lot, you know, at the beginning.
Yeah, well, the only two tools you need to start selling on Amazon are Amazon Seller Central and Keepa. But to find brands, that's a little bit different. So if you're just starting, I would recommend doing the sourcing strategies that we've discussed in depth and have screen shares of on the YouTube channel, where we're reverse sourcing and doing storefront stalking. I would recommend doing those manual methods and really getting learning, how to source. And then from there, after you have, some good experience doing that, I would definitely, recommend getting Smart Scout, because Smart Scout will streamline your process and it will allow you to find more brands at a faster rate. And we've done on previous lives, we've done tons of tutorials and Smart Scout and finding brands.
Yeah,
So
they just
definitely,
changed the layout. Did you see that? I think it was this week. The layout changed a little bit
yeah,
with the
I
sourcing
did see
product.
that on
I'm still
Smart
getting
Scout.
used to it, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's good. Hi guys, I also noticed that brands sometimes list the authorized distributors on their website. Yes, they
Uh,
do.
Yeah, they will. And don't be afraid to reach out to those distributors if you can't close the account with the brand. And it's a good way
Mhm.
to validate that the distributor is authorized by looking on the brand's website.
Yeah, and you can also ask that on the phone too. You know, if you're they're saying, "Hey, we're not opening, but we, look at some distributors that we use." You can ask them for a list of those on the phone as well.
Right. And then Tim asking, can you guys provide any tips on how to get a distributor to consider allowing me to buy smaller MOQ to test out some ASINs, just trying to lower or spread out my risk since the MOQs are high?
So a distributor, for the most part, is a volume-driven um, like entity, right? So in most cases, the distributor's job is to sell products on behalf of the brand. So the larger your purchase, the more leverage you're going to have in terms of discounts and things like that. For a test order, which should be in our mind 20 to 30 units, because we want to make sure that it's enough for us to tell if we're getting a share of the buy box, but not so much where it's going to be we're holding on to inventory, right? Um, in all honesty, if it's, let's say it's a $5,000 MOQ and you want to go deep on a product, but you don't want to spend that money, it's see if you can purchase the product for retail cost from them. That's something that I would do for 20 to 30 units or something like that. If they're not going to give you a wholesale price, as long as you can get a legitimate invoice, even if you have to take a little bit of a loss on the test order just to make sure the product sells, that's probably what I would do in the situation. If there's no way that I'm going to get, you know, the high MOQ. The other elements of that is I wouldn't start making these demands and asks if it's your first order with the distributor. I'd find a way to get the product just as a test order, 20, 30 units, maybe pay retail, see how it moves in the buy box, and then go from there and go deep on a product. You got any other opinion on that, Brad? Or
No, yeah, that pretty much covers it. Yeah.
do you use any useful websites that help find brands to contact and their contact info when there's no number or email on their website, just a contact form?
You can use something called Zoom Info, which I've actually started using recently. I don't even know what that was.
Wasn't that on a live? Someone
Yeah, I think
mentioned that.
somebody said it on a live, and I was
Yeah.
like, I started. I was like, oh yeah, it's got all the people's information on there. You can
I
use.
mean, dude, we're like, I feel like we're like dinosaurs though. Like we just, people are like, do you use this? And we're like, no.
Yeah, yeah, I know it's funny, but you can use Zoom Info. You can use LinkedIn if you have a LinkedIn account. That's a good way to find uh, brands, or representatives and executives at brands for sure. Um, so get creative. You could show up at their doorstep.
Yeah,
Um,
we're over here like, yeah, I get all their info on MySpace, you know. I hit them up on their Tumblr. It's like that's like we're how old we are is like yeah. I mean, Zoom Info is I've heard good things about it. I personally haven't used it yet. I didn't even know you started using it. I should probably look into it.
yeah, I mean, if the
But
company,
also like another thing I kind of want to add about that, and you actually I've learned this from you is like it depends on it's caliber of the account too. Like we've gone through some crazy lengths to get contact information from brands if the juice is worth the squeeze, if it's a high caliber, right? If it's just like a, you know, $200 profit a month account, send a contact form. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, I mean, high caliber is all relative to where you're at in the process, but
Mhm.
if like if the brand is local, you could go to trade shows too. Actually considering that
Yeah. Yeah.
brand at a trade show coming up, just because I've been kind of fighting them to get not fighting them, but trying to give them information, but they've been very hesitant and non-receptive. But they said somebody was going to be at the show who was making the decisions. Meet them face to face. It's a good opportunity in person. Another way to meet brands and have face to
Yeah.
face
I
interaction.
mean, Dylan, sometimes you just got to get creative. You gotta get creative, whether it's LinkedIn, whether it's Zoom Info, whether it's finding some sort, buying a product and then customer service and then like
Yeah.
just getting creative.
Yeah, and make sure if you really can't get a response, like put a subject line that gets their attention in the contact form. You know,
Mhm. So I came across some great wholesale storefronts with some really good ASINs. How do you guys go about reversing these ASINs to buy them wholesale?
so if you found some good ASINs that are selling well, all you do is you type in the name of the brand on Google, and then you go to the brand's website, grab their phone number, and call them and explain that you are interested in opening a wholesale account.
Yeah, and there's tons of videos on that on reverse sourcing and storefront stalking on the YouTube channel as well if you want to check those out.
Yeah. Amazon logistics, how to send inventory from prep and send inventory from the supplier. We do have a video on the channel. It's probably a year or two old, but it's still applicable. We are coming out with a video that's going to go into all of that. So that'll be coming out in the next couple of weeks. Go into all the details about shipping to Amazon, both
Mhm.
small parcel and LTL. I'll go ahead and link that other video down here, though.
Yeah, and a lot of things have changed in the last year. 2024 really rocked the logistics of Amazon. So a lot of things have changed. So it's more important now than ever to be on top of your dollars, and savings logistics can really like saving money on logistics. I meant to say um, can be a really big component of that, especially when you're in a business model that is so volume intensive like wholesale.
Right. Exactly. Um, just want to jump back to Instagram here and say thank you that the blueprint video to selling on Amazon is one of the best videos I've seen on contacting brands. absolute gold. Thank you. There was a lot put into that video, and we got another gold mine coming out for you in a couple weeks. Really excited to share that one with you guys. So next question here is it worth to pursue wholesale suppliers that are smaller, less than 10 mil in revenue? All of our best suppliers do over 50 mil in revenue. Is that an important metric when reaching out?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I like your username. Nemo is a great movie. So yeah, I mean, the way that we define small to mid-sized brand is not by revenue. It's by the ability to contact and talk to a decision maker or an owner. So, pursuing an account that is small is all relative to where you're at. Um, there's accounts that are, mom and pop working out of their house that do large enough revenues for us to want to contact and close accounts with. So I think if you have the access to more capital and you're able to close higher ticket accounts, I think you should do that because it's all in dollars. So the more dollars you can pull in, the better. But doing it at a pace that's comfortable for you and your company. But I don't think there's anything wrong with pursuing smaller brands. I mean, that's where we've made our bread and butter. To follow up on this question, how big of a role does advertising play in your business, not including brand direct? Brad said it earlier in the stream, but we're really only advertising for brands that we are selective or exclusive with, just because we're using the exclusivity kinds of as a means of payment, essentially, to be able to be doing these things for the brands. And, we're focused on the growth of the brand specifically in these agreements. And so we're really focused on ad dollars and things like that to grow the brand and protect the brand against knockoffs and counterfeits.
Right.
I personally love Seller Assistant, and it's way better than Seller Amp in my opinion. Having previously used Seller Amp for a long time, I won't go back now. Well, I guess that's just another thing for us to look at. If we didn't know what Zoom Info was, then Seller Assistant should be interesting.
We'll put it on the list. Thanks, Tim. What's better to find leads, reverse sourcing or Smart Scout?
I think Smart Scout's more convenient, but I think we also did without it for a very long time. So I don't know. I'm gonna throw that question back at you. What's your opinion on,
Well, if you're looking at what's better, I would say Smart Scout is better just because you're going to be able to accomplish more in a shorter period of time. It's going to streamline your process. You now have the ability to set different filters on KPIs that you're looking for. You can't do that on Amazon. You can't set a monthly revenue amount. You can't set, oh, only want to target brands that have, or I only want to target, products and brands that have two to five sellers on them. So you can't do those things on Amazon directly. So I would say Smart Scout is a more efficient tool. That being said, if you're a beginner, you can absolutely use reverse sourcing manually and storefront stalking. We're still doing storefront stalking, like just because we've, gotten such a knack for it over the years, is that, I'll just be on Amazon one day and I'll just, doing my day to day, and I'll just come across a store and I'll take a look at it and I'll add it to the sheet to then source their store. So that's what I would say on that. It's just, if you're a beginner, start with reverse sourcing and storefront stalking. I think that'll get you to understand the process better. And then, as you grow, consider getting Smart Scout.
Yeah, I think that's a good way of putting it. I mean, I think that that's kind of why I struggled a little bit with my answer to that, is because I think they're different. I think that Smart Scout is a very useful, like you said, just really streamlined tool. But I think that your understanding gets much deeper and granular with something like storefront stalking and reverse sourcing. You're growing your skill set, I think, more with something like that because you have to put in a little bit more work.
Yep. And we'll grab this last question before we sign off here, because we're a few minutes after 8 o'clock. What trade shows do you recommend for 2025?
Yeah, there's a lot. I mean, the first thing just to keep in mind is the difference between like an industry specific trade show, like the SHOT Show, for example, or something that is generic like an ASD or an Expo West or something like that. So if you're targeting within a specific industry, you can look up industry related trade shows, and then if you're not, then kind of more general ones. But just doing some work on Google yourself as well. But we like, and we'll see if I'm missing any. We like both ASD in March and in August. We like March a little bit better. We like the foods shows that are around, the fancy foods. We like sweets and snacks. We like SHOT Show. What's some other ones that I'm leaving out here?
There's a few others. I mean, it's really specific to the industry. So, like, I would say you'll have more success with industry specific shows than you will with general shows like ASD.
Mm.
You're going to get a lot of like distributors and wholesalers and liquidation stuff at a show like that. But with the more industry specific shows, bear in mind that a lot of those are brands that you're going to see there. So they may have Amazon policies in place. So generally, we'll go to those shows if we have a lead or multiple leads, that we're going in it, contacts with the company to either build a relationship or, try to further that brand along. So, search Google for different industries, and you can definitely find some shows that are going on.
Yeah, and they always post a list of their vendors before, so you can do some research on the companies as well.
Yep. So I think that'll do it for this week. You guys had some great questions. We'll hit it again next week, 7 o'clock Eastern. And thanks for watching, guys. We'll see you soon.
See you next week.